Hey guys, how you going? Chris Waters here. Just thought I'd give you another update on where we're up to with the album. And last week we talked about how the album has both acoustic, stylistic nature, but also how it has a worship element that's going to run through it. And what I want to do right now is kind of combine the two and give you a detailed explanation, or somewhat detailed explanation, of how that's going to work and how it's going to look like. So in terms of how the album will have an acoustic nature to it, we're trying to steer clear from as much processed sound as possible. So we're talking about your MIDI keyboards, your VSTIs and your virtual instruments. So your virtual drums, your virtual piano sounds, your virtual guitar sounds even, all this stuff, we don't want anything to do with it really. Not because it's bad, not because it's inherently wrong, but because we're after heart. We're after something that's going to be responsive, something that you can relate to and you can feel. We're after something that has little imperfections in it. We're not trying to make this amazing polished album. We want something that's going to touch you and speak to you and you'll be able to use. And so we're going to steer clear from that as much as possible. Will we use a bit of it? Of course, everyone does. It's easy to use, it's easy to mix, it's easy to control, and therefore we will. But we're going to steer clear from it. We want to embrace things like acoustic guitar, nylon, double bass, cello, percussion instruments, mandolin, all these kind of things. We'd much rather embrace them and have a bit of kind of fret buzz or not a nice harmonic resonance in one of the banjos or something, and deal with that rather than this overproduced sound. The second element, which is the worship element I want to talk about, it kind of relates to the acoustic style in some sense, because we want to produce something that's going to speak to you, something that you can use, a way for you to connect. And the more processed sound that you have, the harder it is for that to occur. And so we have these two extremes in recording with worship. We have the overproduced, really tight studio album, and then you have the really live, dynamic, messy album. And we kind of want to sit somewhere in the middle. We kind of want to borrow things from both categories. It's like Hillsong, who do, in the studio albums I've done in the past, have been really, really, really tight and great. Then on the other extreme, we've got someone like Will Regan, who has an album called Live at the Banks House, which is a recording in someone's house, and you hear everything. You hear people walking around, people coughing, fret buzzes, all this kind of stuff. We want to sit somewhere in the middle of those two things. And having live instruments will really help us do that. And so already we're using those live instruments, and we're having a mixture of that polished / live dynamic element, because we want you to connect with it. One other part that it relates to the worship is in this sense. The album is not going to just go start, stop, start, stop, start, stop as we progress through the songs. It's going to have a flow. And so expect the songs to connect to each other like they would in a worship setting. Expect there to be times of free worship. Expect that possibly even we're toying with the idea of prayer running through it. So it's going to have all these different elements that won't sit like a regular album. So you won't be able to listen to it like a regular album. Will there be radio edits that we'll chuck to the radios? Yes, of course. But in terms of the album itself, it's going to have a really nice kind of flow, and it's going to have big times of dynamic praise and soft times of reflective worship. And so hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're trying to land here. And it's difficult, it's ambitious, but we're working on it. So I'll see you next time when we hear a little bit about more what we're up to. See ya.